up will clinch the game out for Johan, and he becomes your Europe International Champion. If Gabriel can find himself an energy card and one of those counter catcher, he can bring up one of these benched 2-prize Pokemon. Let's see if it's there. It finds both the counter catcher and the dark energy. The back-to-back international champion, Gabriel Fernandez, wins it all in Europe.
One prize card remaining each. Can Tord find the knockout this turn?
Charizard EX in hand. One more piece of the puzzle.
And that's going to be it. The rare candy from the Pidgeot EX will find the evolution needed. Charizard EX, the knockout. Tord Reklev is your European International Champion. 5-time international champion and the greatest player of the modern era.
And a Saltfest variant.
Ivy Kudjo coming out again from the Ogerpon, picking up a huge knockout here, leaving the Incineroar. If it does outspeed this Ferrograph, if it's trying to go for the Trick Room, is going to be able to get the knockoff off, and it is going to pick up a huge knockout.
Huge knockout indeed.
But the battle is cancelled. We have our first juniors final in the EU 2024 Championships. Kevin Han.
In with this play, Dragapult targeting the Chien-Pao. It is enough. It picks up the KO, and this Ting-Lu has a lot of pulling weight. It has to do. It will not, and we see it's been locked in. Benjamin Polster is your champion of the European International Championships.
One hit is all it's going to be taking to take that Pokemon down. And this match, Nils has been in such control the entire time. It was well played, but Nils, he never let out. Always was so close to the title and is going to claim it. Nils Dunlop is going to be your European International Champion.
I'm feeling pretty crazy with this win. I did not expect this coming here. I was happy that I managed to clinch out the win in those crucial moments.
Too happy almost. I won the European Championships and I still can't believe it.
I feel pretty normal.
A bit in shock. Kind of getting used to this now, but still just a great feeling.
I feel very happy to have won EUIC because it was my first IC win.
Es un sueño haber logrado esto, la verdad es algo que siempre quería. Sentí mucho ese logro hace mucho querer también enfrentarme ante Kavi-Chans.
It's been a little bit of time since, especially last year when I got so close and lost in the final. It felt really good to be able to get a little bit of redemption and keep the title in Europe this year.
EUIC 2024 was certainly an event to remember. It was the first tournament with the standard format rotation and also the first one with the electrifying Temporal Forces expansion. In the Junior Division Finals, Peter Shapkin and his Lugia V-Star faced off against Johan Kote and his Lost Zone Gudra V-Star deck. Unfortunately for Peter, a lone Luminian V start in Game 1 and a single Archeops in play Game 2 wouldn't be enough, and Johan's Gudra V-Star was able to roll its way to an IC title.
And a final boss's orders commanding one of these two Pokemon on the bench to come up will clinch the game out for Johan, and he becomes your Europe International Champion.
The Senior Division Finals featured Benny Billinger squaring off versus the reigning world champ Gabriel Fernandez. In 2 games straight, Benny's Charizard EX deck was a bit slow to get going, which swung the matchup heavily towards Gabriel's Ancient Toolbox deck. In the end of each game, Gabriel was able to perfectly map out a path to victory, ensuring he would become the champion.
Let's see if it's there. It finds both the counter catcher and the dark energy. The back-to-back international champion, Gabriel Fernandez, wins it all in Europe.
The Masters Finals lineup was one that would ensure an exciting match. 4-time international champion Tord Reklev aimed to add another trophy to his already impressive collection, while Isaiah Bradner was seeking redemption after falling short at NAIC 2022. Would this finally be Isaiah's time to claim this coveted title? A lone Shuppet start in Game 1 would leave Isaiah scrambling for a potential win condition. Though he eventually found a Colress's experiment, it did nothing but draw the game out for Tord's eventual victory. In Game 2, things seemed much more promising, but in the middle of the battle, Tord played an Iono and attacked with Radiant Charizard. Isaiah's hand after the Iono was not very strong, and he could only muster up an attack with Cramorant, not even taking a prize card. This was the turning point, which ensured Tord would win the prize trade and also win his 5th IC title.
And that's going to be it. The rare candy from the Pidgeot EX will find the evolution needed. Charizard EX, the knockout, Tord Reklev, the 5-time international champion and the greatest player of the modern era.
EUIC set the stage for an incredible final stretch with NAIC on the horizon and Worlds in sight for many trainers. Make sure you continue to tune in at Pokemon.com/compete so you too can be a part of the journey.
Hello Pokemon trainers, this is Zoe. The matches at EUIC 2024 had us all on the edge of our seats and cheering for more. Let's take a look back at the competition in London. EUIC saw trainers from far and wide battle for championship points, Worlds invites, and the title of European International Champion. We saw Paulasha give an electrifying performance, cooking up some mischief with her Shadow Magnezone. Sandoru chomped through the competition with his Guzzlord, and M.E. Weedle turned up the heat with Skeledirge. Going into Championship Sunday, we had an intense match between Sandoru and M.E. Weedle in the winners' finals. After M.E. Weedle's win, Sandoru was up against the formidable Dunebug 97, whom he had defeated earlier in Day 2. This time, Dunebug was able to take the win and set the tone for an edge-of-our-seats grand final. The energy in the audience could not be overstated. A hush fell over the crowd as M.E. Weedle and Dunebug 97 took the stage before erupting into thunderous applause as M.E. Weedle took the crown home with a phenomenal 3-0 win.
Ridiculous performance on Championship Sunday from M.E. Weedle, as it is official. He is your European International Grand Champion!
M.E. Weedle showed absolute dominance over the competition and became the second ever Pokemon GO trainer to become a regional, international, and world champion. As we look forward to the World Championships, more champions are waiting to be crowned. Be sure to tune in and check out Pokemon.com/compete to jump straight into the action.
EUIC was home to Unite's AOS Cup for the second year in a row, and this one was bigger than ever. The first ever in-person open bracket and the invited teams from around the globe were all fighting over the first confirmed World Spot of the year. The first ever open bracket and an international championship brought teams from Europe, North America, Latin America, and even Asia. After 5 fierce rounds of Swiss, 8 teams emerged to enter the group stage, with only one team going undefeated through Swiss, Nemesis from North America. The second stage of the tournament was the 16-team group stage. The 8 teams from the Open were added to the 8 invited teams, which included regional champions from the February tournament, as well as 2 of Japan's strongest squads. Some incredible moments happened in groups, like Adesu of NAIC Esports securing Rayquaza and saving the game on Eldegoss, or Kabi-chans from Japan showing their mastery of Dragonite and knocking out hometown EU favorites for free from the tournament. All of this led to the final day, our top 8 double elimination bracket. It was filled with teams from 5 unique regions, setting up for a day of meta-game clashes. From the beginning of the day, despite being on the elimination side of the bracket, the team that everyone feared was Kabi-chans from Japan. Their run seemed unstoppable after beating NAIC Esports, Nemesis, and Rework Respawn, but the one challenger they could not defeat was Team Fusion from Latin America South. With a draft strategy built around denying Kabi-chans their unique Dragonite and strong Blastoise, Fusion was able to defeat them 3-1 in the grand finals.
And that is why Fusion are your AOS Cup champions!
Fusion became the AOS Cup champions and officially the first team locked in for the World Championships later this year. Think you have what it takes? It's not too late. Make sure to visit start.gg/Pokemon Unite so your team can be a part of the journey as well.
Let us give you an experience.
At the Pokemon Center, EUIC London.
mixing the sounds, gonna make them say the best of the best, the ultimate test. But when we go all the way, here with our friends among champions, the best that we've ever known. Go for the gold, but everyone knows only one of us is gonna take it home.
We share the same vision, we have the same mission, so let the games begin. Come on, travel from far to play, gonna give all it takes, 'cause we came to win.
Let's go! Come on!
We came to win, we came.
Here we go!
We came to win, we came to win. We came to win.
Let the games begin!
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the NAIC Preview Show. My name is Adam Skarzik-Watson, and I'm joined by Rachel, aka Seltzer. How you doing?
I'm so excited. A fan of the show, a lifetime fan of Pokemon, a huge fan of esports, and it's all come together here and now. So excited to be here.
And we're going to set the stage for our audience here at home and get them hyped for this upcoming competition. But we aren't alone. We've got an expert panel that is going to be breaking down each individual game, and we're going to jump right in. We've got a lot of ground to cover, and Caleb Pang is joining us here as our specialist for Pokemon Go. How you doing, Caleb?
Great to be here, Rachel and Adam. Thank you for having me. Excited to talk about Pokemon Go. For us, and for all the other games too, it's the final tournament of the season before World Championships, so there's definitely a lot on the line.
Well, Caleb, help us set the stage here a little bit. In the long but short history of Pokemon Go, a lot has happened, and as you said, this is the last tournament before Worlds this year, so it all leads to this.
Yeah, so this is our third season of the official championship series for Pokemon Go. And this season has been quite different from past seasons. Gligar is at the top of the meta, one of the best Pokemon in it. And I know for some of the other games, they're thinking, wow, Gligar, not Gliscor. But yeah, Gligar is just that strong. Most steel types are pretty much out of the meta outside of Skarmory. We had a lot of steel tanks with Ready Steel and Glaring Stunfisk in past metas, but it's just pretty much non-existent. And then our top fighting Pokemon of choice, Metachamp, is completely gone now. And it's really because there's been some nerfs and buffs, but also we have Annihilate on the scene, recently released to Pokemon Go a couple of months ago, and it's been at the top of the top for all the metas we've had recently. Los Angeles, Stockholm, Indianapolis, all three regionals of this month from North America and EU. It has the #1 usage on those tournaments, and it's been performing quite well as well.
Well, speaking of top of the top, why don't we take a look at the leaderboard and see who's currently sitting at the top heading into this final international tournament.
Yeah, that's right. So we have Doombug97 at that #1 spot, over 1,500 points in championship points. This is the first season we've had championship points for Pokemon Go, and Doombug is taking a huge advantage of that. In the second and third spot, we have Hard Jeff and Rise to Occasion. All three will be going to North America International Championships as well. Doombug actually has the chance to eclipse that 2,000 championship point mark if he wins it all. But yeah, that's a lot to do even for Doombug. And then we have a whole list of trainers here on this list in the leaderboards as well. And I know quite a few of them are going to North America International Championships for that final push for that travel award to secure their travel award invite. And then, of course, we have a number of players that actually aren't on this leaderboard, but they're closing in at that qualification mark for their respective regional requirements. So a lot on the line for even people not on this list.
I think that if you give competitive players a ranking, a leaderboard, somewhere where they're going to have their name up for everyone to see, it's going to light that competitive fire for them. And I guess this is a perfect moment to actually take a look at our top players, right, to watch for Pokemon Go as we head into this big international tournament.
That's absolutely right. I mean, we'll kick it off with Doombug97, one of our best trainers in the world, and there's a couple reasons for that. He's #1 on the championship points leaderboard, and how he got there was by winning 3 regional championships just this season alone. Some people have not even done that in their entire career, but he's done it 3 times in just this season. He also got second place at EUIC Europe International Championships this year too. but he hasn't won his first international title yet. And he's definitely looking for it here in North America. Many say he's the current best player in the entire world, and I think he's going to be going to New Orleans to try to prove that.
Absolutely, but he is not alone there. Even though he's about 400 points away from everybody else on the leaderboard, we've got It's Axon on his tail.
Yeah, It's Axon, a big name in Pokemon Go. He was the North America International Champion in 2022 in the first season of Pokemon Go. He didn't defend his title last year, but instead he took the World Championship instead and is our current reigning world champion. He obviously auto-qualified for World Championships after winning that title last year. So he didn't play in as many tournaments this season, but he's definitely going to be returning to North America International Championships where kind of his glory started and trying to reclaim that North America International title.
When a player, has big success and is trying to step back into that space to maintain that dominance, it can be very daunting. But another player that's really risen up through the rankings, I think, is a personal friend of ours, Caleb.
Yeah, that's Rise to the Occasion too. He rises to the occasion quite often, a fellow co-caster of the broadcast, but also a champion, a recent champion of Los Angeles, the most recent regional just a couple of days ago. And a fun fact about Rise to the Occasion, he has won one regional title every single year that Pokemon Go has been on this competitive circuit. And he is currently the only person in the world who have ever done this feat. And unless something wild happens at Bologna this upcoming weekend, he's going to be the only person to ever have that feat too. So quite the impressive resume himself. He is third on that championship points leaderboard like we talked about earlier. And he also got second place at North America International Championships last year, losing to Wadaj in a very close Game 5 after bracket reset. He was half a second away from taking it all, but he did come in that second place. And I know for a fact he's definitely returning to NAIC for some redemption and getting his shot at his first international title as well.
Yeah, everybody loves a good story, loves a good underdog, and he's going to be even hungrier at this gigantic tournament. But I mean, losing to Wadaj is certainly nothing to be ashamed of. He's a dominant player in his own right. And as we kind of move across the pond to our next batch of players to watch for EU, who do we have here?
Yeah, well, so actually we still have a couple more players to
even
highlight
more.
in North America. Yeah, there's a lot of players here, in NA. And we actually have Hasinier, also known as Greenish Backwards or Cindy. She is actually the Vancouver 2022 champion, one of the first people to qualify for World Championships in our first season. She missed World's qualification last year, but after championship points were introduced as a qualification requirement for this year, came back strong again in Vancouver this year, 2024. And this was back in March. She placed 5th place, and after that, getting her first championship points and has been on absolute tear since then. And she's only 100 points away from qualifying. So this is a big tournament for her. Speaking of big tournaments, this is also a big tournament for Mushroom Queen, who also has played in all the West Coast regionals and is closing in on that invitation mark as well. Also 100 points, within 100 points, actually less than 100 points away from qualifying for her first Worlds. And for a lot of these players, like the first amount of points you could get is 100 points from North America International Championships. So if either Cindy or Mushroom Queen or a number of players get their points at North America International Championships, they qualify for Worlds. So a big moment for people on the top of the leaderboard, but also at ones that are just about to reach that qualification mark.
Wow. NA with so many great players and the home team advantage for this next event. I have to wonder, you feel like the EU players are ready to measure up?
I mean, I think so. There were quite a few players from North America that went to Europe International Championships, and one of them was Doombug as well. Like we mentioned, got second place, but they defended their home soil, and I think they're looking to invade NA here. We have Inadequance to kick things off as a player to watch from EU. He was the Utrecht 2024 champion. That was actually the most recent tournament that he played in, and he has had multiple top cuts throughout his years of competing. He also got 9th place at World Championships last year. And he won with a Giratina Origin. And so he is known to always bring spice picks. And I'm sure he's going to bring a pretty wild team for NAIC as well. And I think he's going to have quite the performance too.
I love it when a player can bring some spice. That is always what I'm looking out for. Is there anybody else in EU that we should be keeping our eyes on? Hopefully bring some more spice alongside Inadequance?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I don't know if he's known to bring as much spice, but he is a very consistent player. Maxi 1 million P. He just missed out on qualifying for World Championships last season, but he has had multiple top cut performances throughout his years competing. He's already qualified for World Championships this season, and this is actually his first tournament outside of EU. So going to be very interesting to see how he stacks up against the NA players. And of course, a lot of the NA players haven't played against him too. So it's going to be kind of a mixed bag on both fronts. He utilized Wigglytuff in his last tournament run, and it now has access to Swift, which is a new move it's going to be getting right before this tournament. So it might even play better for Maxi, but very excited to see him play at NAIC as well.
Consistency, innovation. As we move on to LATAM, where do you feel the next players excel?
Yeah, LATAM is a very stacked field as well. We're going to start things off with LNDS T. Steinar. He's one of the best players in Latin America, but arguably in the world as well. He's had incredible runs just this year. In his last 3 tournaments, he got 4th place at Latin America International Championships, 1st place at Goiânia, and then 2nd place at Sao Paulo. And like I said, these were his most 3 recent tournaments and all top 5 finishes. Obviously, that 1st place finish as well. And he's already qualified for World Championships. And he's only played in Latin America tournaments leading up to this outside of World Championships last year. So again, another face that doesn't make appearance in NA as often, but very excited to see him bring his talents over to NA. And I think a lot of people that have seen his gameplay over at LATAM are definitely going to be a little concerned if they see him sitting across the table from them.
I love it when a player from a scene that has been so dominant in their own home turf can break out into that international space and really put their name on the global map. And this is a big part of what makes these ICs so important for the community. But who else from LATAM is going to be joining him?
Yeah, I mean, speaking of ICs too, the last player to round it out for LATAM is LNDS Harjep. He is the first LATAM player to qualify for both 2023 and 2024 Worlds. So he won both tournaments last year and this year, the first tournament ever for their regions. And then he also won Latin America International Championships this year. And he was also the only person in Pokemon GO history to not drop a single game in a tournament. He did this in Curitiba this year, and he went 18-0, meaning he didn't drop a single game, not a series, not even a single game against any player. Incredible run from him, and he's also 2nd place on the global championship points leaderboard, which is really impressive too, especially because LATAM doesn't have nearly as many tournaments as maybe NA or EU. So really quite the feat too on his performance there. And he's also going to be potentially the first person to win 2 different international titles in different regions. I think he's the only person that's able to do this at this upcoming NAIC, so that could be a historic feat as well.
As Pokemon GO has blossomed as a esport, as a community, the global prestige is definitely be taking full advantage of by these all-star players. I'm so excited for LATAM specifically to show up on the world stage here, it looks like.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, a lot of them are fighting for that travel war too. So I know there's quite a competition even within region coming to North America International Championships.
Well, Kayla, we've been quizzing you a little bit about these players, but now it's time for a quick quiz for Twitch chat. As I throw my pen on the ground, I ask you, Twitch chat, which Pokemon impacted by the new Shared Skies update do you feel like will have the most success at NAIC? We've got some options for you in there. You can choose from Lantern, Whiscash, Wigglytuff, Whimsicott, and Typhlosion. And as I understand it, some changes, some updates, not just Shared Skies, but also some balance changes as well are going to have an impact on this.
Yeah, this is actually really crucial for North America International Championships because Shared Skies is the update coming out to Pokemon GO. And Pokemon GO usually has a meta shift every 3 months. And this meta shift is happening 4 days before NAIC, meaning no other tournament leading up to this will have ever seen this meta before. And no other tournament will see this meta until Worlds. So a lot of people, even if they're not coming to North America International Championships, may be tuning in, especially if you're going to World Championships from another region. You're going to see, you want to pay attention to this meta because this is the only meta you have as a reference to seeing how potentially World Championships can go. And, you know, there's some of the notable nerfs and buffs is nerfs to Spark and Scald, 2 moves that very meta Pokemon use. And then we also have a buff to C-Bomb, and then Swift is getting a little bit changed, generally seen as a buff, but we'll have to wait and see. And some other Pokemon getting some moves like Typhlosion getting Thunder Punch, definitely on the spicier end. But, you know, Lantern's on this bowl too, because Lantern, even though it's getting nerfed on Spark, there might be a lot of players opting for that water gun usage instead, which gives it even better usage.
Well, I do have some results from that Twitch poll. Thank you, everybody in the audience, for participating there. Wigglytuff seems to be Twitch chat's top pick for the Pokemon that's really going to shine despite these changes. What do you think about that, Caleb?
Yeah, Wigglytuff's going to be interesting too. We did see a rise in dark types in Los Angeles. Rise Occasion actually ran Umbreon to success using a triple dark combination, so absolutely zero coverage into fairy types, but he was betting on there wasn't much fairy types in the meta, and there actually wasn't. So that could be a response to the most recent regional, but we'll have to wait and see at NAIC.
And we can actually dive a little bit deeper into the expected meta, the surrounding tournaments leading up to NAIC. Even though this is going to be a fresh format, the players are going to be trying to do their best with what data that they have.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the meta itself could be interesting too. Some people don't think the meta is going to be a huge shift. The others think that's actually not going to be the case, and it actually is a bigger shift than people anticipate. We have Annihilate at the top of the meta to highest usage, and I don't think it's really going anywhere soon. I mean, it's none of the nerfs or buffs really hurt it too much in any respect. However, one of the most reliable counters to Annihilate is going to be that Shadow Gligar, like I mentioned, top of the meta this season, and it's still looking strong, especially with that Spark nerf. There might be a little bit less Lantern, which was kind of a more neutral matchup in general for those. However, one of the few Pokemon that resists all the moves from Gligar, both that flying and ground damage, is actually going to be Skarmory, which is one of the biggest reasons why it's picked up in usage as well in this meta. And like I said, we had Rise Occasion running that Umbreon. A lot of people really rely on Umbreon these days because there's a lack of fairy types. So I think dark types like Umbreon can make an appearance, but you know, and that's how kind of the rock, paper, scissors go. More people bring in more fairy types. Some people say it's Wigglytuff like Twitch chat, but also Zoomer, a top staple of fairy types. And of course, we have Lantern too. It did get a nerf with Spark, but maybe more people opt to run Water Gun, which makes it even better into that Gligar matchup and still very dominant into Skarmory. So we're going to wait and see, but these are definitely some meta picks you should definitely watch out for if you're attending NAIC, because they're definitely going to be on quite a few teams.
Well, you can tell our social media team is plugged in because you sort of addressed this, but we've got a question from Twitter that goes a little bit deeper for you, Caleb. They want to know, how will Go players adapt to the rise of dark types at NAIC? With the move update happening right before, will Water Gun Lantern or Spark Lantern see higher usage? And you did mention some of this, but I'd love to know a little bit deeper.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like how will Go players adapt? It seems like Go players are already adapting in Twitch chat because they're already voting for Wigglytuff making an appearance. So I think they're already onto it too. They're saying, hey, look, the dark types are running a little rampant and unchecked, so we're going to have to bring some fairy types to check it. And Wigglytuff, a fantastic choice. Azumarill as well. We even see Whimsicott getting a slight buff with the C-Bomb buff that it has access to, so we might even see a little bit of Whimsicott action as well. Haven't seen it too much on the stage, but I think it is poised to do pretty well in this specific meta. And of course, we have Water Gun or Spark Lantern in usage. And one of the biggest reasons why Water Gun Lantern had very little play was because Spark Lantern was so rampant and it just won that head-to-head matchup. But if Spark's getting nerfed and most people aren't running Spark, then more people might run Water Gun, which is a little bit safer into that Gligar matchup and a few other matchups. However, if everyone's running Water Gun, then maybe more people run back into Spark. So it's kind of like a roundabout. I think I know what you're doing, so I'm going to one-up you there. Yeah.
Rock, paper, scissors, lizards. I don't know. There's a lot of levels here.
Just keep good old Rock. Nothing beats that. Spark Lantern, right? Just stick with the try. Let everybody else overthink it.
That's right. So we'll see how it goes. But like I said, this is going to be a fresh new meta going into NAIC with only 4 days for prep for our Go players. So it's going to be very exciting to see what people cook up and what does well.
Yeah, a whole lot of reasons to tune in and see how this plays out. We'll give you one more reason too. We're going to have Twitch drops in the chat during the broadcast. So make sure you're watching, keeping an eye out for those codes. You can redeem them in-game and check out the links.
Yeah, another great incentive to tune in.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you get Stardust, 5 charge TMs, 5 fast TMs, and then even also Altaria as a reward. Altaria was one of the main staple picks of Emmy Weedo's team, which is our Europe International Champion. And so you get your own Altaria, which is really nice because it typically costs 400 candies to evolve it from a Swablu. So a little bit cheaper way to get it is getting the Twitch drop.
You had me at Stardust. I'm there.
Yeah, players love to save a little bit of time and get a Pokemon that's already had a great great competitive performance. And I guess speaking of competitive performances, do we have any additional thoughts from you, Caleb, before we let you go for now?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is going to be a super interesting tournament overall. We have a lot of players coming from all around the world to compete here, and Pokemon Go is a growing game. Every tournament, there's just more and more competitors. This current NAIC already has more players registered to compete than last season, so very excited to see. But I believe there's still a few more spots, so if you're excited and you want to join in on the action, then sign up as well and be a part of it.
Thank you so much. And again, huge welcome and invitation from our viewers to get in on the action and sign up and get in on the competition. Pokemon Go has been growing for such a long time now, it's only going to get bigger. So thank you for those final thoughts, Caleb. And with that, we get to move on to our next segment. As we said, folks, we got a lot of ground to cover, and the next game that we have slated for you is Pokemon TCG. And helping us break down this new format for NAIC is Jeremy Jallin. How are you doing, Jeremy?
I'm doing well. Good to be here at the pre-show. Great to see Rachel and Adam here, and I'm excited to talk about some TCG.
Yeah, I'm grateful to see you as well, my friend. We have Twilight Masquerade coming out, making its international official competition debut for NAIC. But I want to hear your thoughts right now about this meta and kind of throughout the season, how we get to this point.
Yeah, well, it was a season dominated a lot by Charizard EX, and it's kind of evolved into this format where we kind of have solved it a little bit. It's 20% Charizard, maybe like 10% Chien-Pao, and then like 10% like Pidgeot control, and it kind of like peters down from there. But it's been a super intense, long season, and we've seen, speaking of growing games, the most growth that the TCG has ever had, and I think EUIC was our like largest tournament, and NAIC is definitely rivaling that.
And the outpouring of new attendees and competitors for this tournament has, I think, really caused the metagame to evolve even more rapidly. But our top players do seem to maintain their spots at the top of the metagame, no matter where things seem to shift. So we can take a look at that leaderboard now and take a look at some of the top names that our audience should be looking out for.
Yeah, well, consistency is the name of the game here for the Pokemon TCG, and all of these players have been super consistent throughout the entire regional and IC season, leading up into NAIC and then eventually Worlds. These players specifically are trying to get their respective buy for Worlds and have made a ton of money trying to do that. Brent Tonnison's traveled the world once over, more again. William Azeveto's looking for a big IC win. You have Tord Reklev, 5 international championships. Lucas Zhang just won our last regional of the North American season in LA with Pidgeot control, which was just a masterfully built deck. It was great to see.
The names that you see on the screen here, folks, if you don't know anything about Pokemon TCG, just remember these names, watch their games, and you're going to be brought up to speed, no doubt. We can probably zoom in a little bit, actually, Jeremy, and take a look at some specific players that are really our all-stars for NAIC.
Yeah, well, first we're going to start with the NA region. One of the best players in the modern era of the game, just in general, Azul Garcia Griego. He has just been enormous in growing the game with content creation, but also just playing. At the beginning of the season, started off with 4 top 8s in a row, including a win in San Antonio regionals, and ended up the tail end of the season with a win at Stockholm with a control deck, and has been doing it with pretty much a wide variety of decks. Just figures out a deck beforehand, play it, you know he's going to do well.
Yeah, if you can figure out the metagame, play that new deck that's going to give you the highest odds of victory, Azul's usually on the forefront of those meta developments. Very strong player, but we've got another player from NA to keep our eyes on, I think, joining him at this big tournament.
Yeah, that's Ian Robb. Now, Azul did win NAIC a couple years ago. Now, Ian Robb got second place last year, losing to Cyrus Davis. And Ian's been another one that's just been super consistent up at the top, has 3 top 8s, including a top 4 this season, a couple top 16s at regionals, and I believe 12th place at LAIC. And it's definitely a name to keep an eye on. I think he kind of wants a little bit of revenge, and coming that close to the trophy, wants to try it again.
Yeah, very similar to what we saw in Pokemon Go. Another player coming to NAIC and trying to get their redemption. And as we kind of shift over to EU, right? Yeah, EU, because I remember we had too many stacked NA players for Go, but EU, I think when we say stacked, there's only a couple names that really come to mind.
It's a short stack.
Yeah, well, first off, Yuho Kalama, LAIC champion, did it with Miraidon and Iron Hands EX, and then goes ahead and gets 6th place at EUIC with the new version of Iron Hands EX with the Iron Crown and Miraidon, just trying to make the little future box work. And honestly, he's been putting in a lot of consistent results with Iron Hands EX just as a card. Also has a 7th place at Stockholm Regionals, and seems to be doing pretty well at the ICs this season.
Yeah, Iron Hands EX is going to be a big Pokemon to watch out for in NAIC overall.
And I know this is a player that you told us to memorize that leaderboard name. Well, there's a name that is just got a little historical asterisk next to us. Tell us about how Tord Reklev's doing.
Yeah, I don't know what we can really say about Tord that we haven't already said, but 5-time international champion. No one's ever done that. He's the first person to win 3, 4, and 5 now. And he has a 56% chance to make top 8 at an international that he signs up for. Most people don't have that percentage chance to make day 2, let alone.
Yeah, are there decks with that win rate right now?
Yeah, you are such a consistent player, such a winning player, that you begin to warp the very statistics of the game around yourself. And Tord Reklev, was on the forefront of, really championing Gardevoir EX when that first released into the format. So he's no stranger to, showing up to a tournament that's sort of brand new, has a lot of decks to choose from, and finding something that's truly special.
Yeah, there's just some reason why Tord decides to do well at every international and now Worlds. He's gotten a 4th and a 2nd last year at Worlds. So for some reason, he just wants to build the most consistent deck as possible, and that'll take him there. And for some reason, it always does.
For some reason, the acclaim of the fans, the prize. I can't think of any reasons off the top of my head, but for some reason, he achieves.
And this is certainly a hard name to follow, but LATAM is not going to shy away from that challenge. We got some players from this region as well that are going to show up at NAIC and give him a run for his money.
Yeah, William Azevedo, they actually played in top 4 at EUIC, and it came down to just a matter of minutes of William actually taking the victory over Tord. So definitely looking for some payback there, but has been a big proponent of Charizard EX with the Arvin build with Pidgeot EX, won Curitiba Regionals all the way back when, and has really just stuck with the deck, has a good group around him, and we could see some more innovation coming from him and his partner as well. Pedro Patusi has been putting in a lot of work as well. Ended up getting another regional championship a little bit earlier on this past month or so, and it's just another player that is very good coming from LATAM.
Yeah, that's honestly a great point that you touch on there, Jeremy, where these players are all-stars, but they also have really great testing partners and training partners in their corner, helping them find the best decks, because not all of us can do it alone. And when it comes to potentially mastering Charizard EX and carrying that over into a new format, what do you think the chances are that Charizard EX is actually going to be a relevant factor for NAIC?
Oh, it's still a really good card. You still have a lot of the old decks like Charizard and Chien-Pao that could still make a big splash into the meta. But for right now, a lot of people are also just looking at the new cards, saying what can really work well with it. And the thing about NAIC is it's kind of its own bubble of a tournament. There's no real format that's going to be played outside of NAIC.
Yeah, it's definitely a big melting pot for players from all over the world, and I think we would be remiss not to mention, I think, one of our most globe-trotting players that we have for Pokemon TCG.
Yeah, Brent Thompson is just crazy guy, traveling all around the world, back and forth yet again to every tournament basically that he can get his hands on, and that's done a lot for him. He's first at Melbourne, second at Liverpool, third at Perth, fifth at Stockholm, and then seventh at Peoria. That's a lot of different countries, and then he has 14 day twos this season.
He's also,
if we're talking about consistency, that's pretty consistent.
Yeah, he's undefeated in his fight against jet lag, certainly.
An impressive feat.
Yes, honestly, I don't know if it's sustainable, but it's good while it's lasting.
Mm-hmm. And another thing that I guess that we can touch on with NAIC, the new format, Twilight Masquerade, the newest set becoming tournament legal. We have a Twitch poll for those of you who are watching from home. Definitely let us know which of these new cards from Twilight Masquerade is going to have the biggest impact in top 8. Let me see. We've got Teal Mask Ogerpon EX, Dragapult EX, Monkey Dory, Blood Moon Ursaluna EX, or Legacy Energy. Any of those jumping out to you, Jeremy?
They all add themselves to a different style of deck that Twilight Masquerade provides. And honestly, the one with the most just inherent power is that Blood Moon Ursaluna EX. It's reminiscent of Radiant Charizard, which has been in so many decks prior, except now it's just an EX Pokemon, and you can penny it back up, or Charon's Carrot. My favorite on that list is Monkey Dory. I love the Adrenabrain ability, being able to move damage counters around and maybe get those knockouts that you might need or heal your Pokemon.
As a fan of Monkey Dory, what deck are you thinking he would kind of slot best into, or what archetype?
My friends and I have been testing Blissey a lot, Blissey EX from Twilight Masquerade. I don't know if it's really going to get there. The most use I see for it is in something like a Lost Zone deck or Gardevoir EX, just being able to get those numbers.
That is very interesting. I hadn't heard about any Lost Zone Monkey Dory yet, but that is an archetype that's known for running a bunch of different types of energy, so being able to have that darkness energy to activate Adrenabrain would certainly be useful.
Yeah, it's not bad. And being able to move the damage that spread from Dragapult or something similar is pretty good in matchups like that.
Well, it looks like we've got the results of our Twitch poll, and Twitch chat, once again, extremely plugged in. They have chosen the Teal Mask Ogerpon EX card as potentially having the biggest effect. So what's your reaction to that?
Well, this has the most hype around it. Just being able to play it with Raging Bolt EX, and it uses its Teal Dance ability to accelerate energy and draw a card, so you can really kind of get the best of both worlds with an ability like that. And just as a deck in general, it's gotten a lot of hype.
Yeah, that actually is a great segue into our next point. As we talk about the prospective meta for NAIC, that Raging Bolt EX, Teal Mask, Ogerpon EX combination does seem to be at the forefront of a lot of testing groups right now. Can you break down what's the point of this deck and what's allowed Raging Bolt to really come to the top here?
Yeah, well, Raging Bolt EX as a card came out previous set with Temporal Forces, but now is really kind of shining. You have Professor Sada's Vitality and this Teal Mask Ogerpon EX to accelerate energy, and you can do 70 for each energy you discard from your Pokemon. So there's not really a damage cap. It's just based on how many energy you can get in play. And so far, it's just one of the consistent decks. You play 4 Raging Bolt, 3 to 4 Teal Mask. You play stuff to search energy. It all synergizes very well together, but it still kind of is getting its footing in this metagame right now. And it's seen a kind of a mountain, like an up and down kind of dip in playability.
Gotcha. Yeah, just the aggression and card flow is certainly something our players really enjoy. Going into a new format, if you can play a deck that can consistently attack, maybe before your opponent can get set up, that could be a recipe for success. But this is being compared to Dragapult EX, one of the top decks from the debut of the set when we were looking at early data from Japan. What's your read on Dragapult EX, Jeremy?
It's just a very solid EX Pokemon, 320 HP. We know Charizard 330 is pretty good. No weakness is probably the biggest thing about Dragapult EX. It's a lot harder to take down, counter, Phantom Dive, 200, and then place 6 damage counters on your opponent's bench. Is a good way to kind of steal some prizes here and there, or maybe set up some KOs. And then the Dracloak actually has the ability Recon Directive, reminiscent of like an old Pidgeotto Airmail. You look at the top 2, put one of them in your hand, put the other one on bottom, and it's just a very good consistency card overall. And it's able to be paired with a lot of things. People have tried it with Pidgeot, Charizard, Xatu. It'll be interesting to see what actually ends up being the best version of it.
Yeah, this is a deck with so many different facets, so many different ways to build it. I am going to be keeping my eye on our players to see if they can figure something out in time. But I think another deck that kind of has already been figured out is Lugia V-Star. This is the next pick we have for our meta chat.
Yeah, just for some reason, this won't really go away. Lugia V-Star, ever since it's released in Silver Tempest, has been one of those cards that it's very consistent, does what it does. Primal Turbo with Archeops, you get your special energies. It just got second place at LA Regionals, and that's without the newer cards. And it doesn't really add that many newer cards, but the biggest one is Legacy Energy. Just having another special energy that counts as any type of basic energy allows you to attack with Lumineon V, put Iron Hands EX back in your deck.
Oh, no.
You can play the new Wellspring Mask Ogerpon EX just to have some snipe ability. It makes the deck a lot more versatile. And then you actually have a new supporter in Carmine, which actually can play on the first turn of the game, discard your hand, draw 5. That's pretty good when you want to get Archeops in the discard.
It seems like they're giving Lugia back everything that it lost during the Silver Tempest rotation. And this is really going to bring the deck back in a big way. Do you think that this is finally legit, Jeremy? Because I know that I was personally very low on Lugia being a meta deck for a long time, but is this all just hype, or have you played against this yet?
I've played against it a little bit, and let's just say Wancho is a little bit happier now than in the previous meta, so
all right,
we'll have
I'll
to see
take
how
it.
it does.
He deserves a break. He's our resident Lugia enjoyer. But speaking of big birds...
Oh, yeah. Well, I was going to say, sometimes you got to go real far in order to count as being back. So happy to see you back, Lugia. And yeah, speaking of birds, especially birds from the old Kanto Johto world, let's talk about Pidgeot EX.
Yeah, Pidgeot EX, it's really just evolved into this control deck that has answers for pretty much anything in the format. We saw it just gain a ton of popularity towards the end of our regional season, ended up winning LA Regionals, and is gonna be a card that, and a deck that people kind of look towards for NAIC, but it's also, with control decks, you play them when the meta's kind of figured out. If the meta is still this brand new, it's really gonna only be for this tournament, essentially. You will take a big risk if you choose something like this. You might hit something that you weren't preparing for.
The risk of playing control into a new format, despite how powerful it is, I think, a risk that a lot of our very skilled control players are willing to take, especially this new aggressive variant from LA. Do you think that that is going to be a potential way people are going to play Pidgeot? Do they like this aggressive variant with the Entei V, or is it going to be the classical variations of Pidgeot EX that we saw at EUIC?
Yeah, it's something that's definitely possible. You even get more aggressive with Blood Moon Ursaluna EX. Just having a 260 HP basic Pokemon that can deal 240 damage for 1 energy, maybe towards the end of the game, maybe 0 energy. And it's just one of those cards that could close out a game very quickly, which Control usually hasn't had in the past.
So with Pidgeot EX and Lugia V-Star, these are decks that have kind of risen up into new prominence. And we can contrast this with our next pick, Gardevoir EX, a deck that was at the height of the metagame and has sort of fallen off. And right now its claim to fame is, trust me, bro, it's a lot better than you think it is. So what's Gardevoir EX looking like for NAIC?
Honestly, it's still kind of the same. You have to just pray and hope. It's never going to be as good as it was for that 2023 Worlds. I think people already kind of realize that, but you do get two cards that are pretty interesting in Twilight Masquerade. The Monkey Dory we've already touched on, just being able to Adrena Brain some of your damage counters over. Maybe you can hit a little harder with Screamtail or Drifloon, or you can just heal off your Gardevoir or hit 220 with Miracle Force. But Hyper Aroma, the new ace spec that came out, is kind of tailor-made for this deck. It searches your deck for 3 Stage 1 Pokemon and put them in your hand. So that's 3 Kirlia in my hand. That's 3
Mirage Step. We have it back.
It's basically the same thing, you know, not as good, but basically the same thing. And I'm looking forward to, you know, the Gardevoir players trying to lab the deck a little bit.
Well, you talked about some decks that might be getting an update thanks to the Twilight Masquerade set coming out. And one of those you mentioned was Lost Zone. So what's your thought on that going into this tournament? Are we going to see variations of it?
Yeah, there's 3 main variations of Lost Zone. You got Giratina V-Star, Radiant Charizard, and then just the toolbox with Mirage Gate. You have some EXs like Roaring Moon or Iron Hands. And I feel just the deck in general is always going to be pretty good. You get some upgrades with the Tatsuguri. Its ability to track customers allows you to look at the top for a supporter and try to find those Colossus Experiment a little bit better. And then again, Blood Moon Ursaluna EX is just insane for any Lost Box deck. It's gonna be an auto inclusion. It attacks for colorless, it attacks for a lot, and it attacks late game for cheap. And that's kind of the trifecta of what you want. And then Jamming Tower is also a good stadium that could be utilized just to play it down and negate those tools. And last but not least, Unfair Stamp as an ace spec seems like it's tailor-made for Lost Zone.
This is an archetype that, similar to Control, right? You want to play it when the meta's figured out to make use of various attackers because Mirage Gate is so powerful for enabling those cards. But heading into a new format, even though you don't know what you might need to counter, Lost Zone is a deck that seems like it has a little something for everybody. Is there a particular build like the Dragapult EX that you're particularly drawn to, Jeremy?
I'm not really a Lost Zone kind of person. I guess Giratina's always been my go-to version of it. I love Jet Energy as a card, and Giratina usually plays 4 copies of that. But I don't know, it takes a lot of thinking to play a Lost Zone deck, and if you flower selecting the wrong card away, it could be game over.
Yeah, that's honestly very well said. It's a very high risk, high reward, big brain list, and we'll see if our players are bold enough to try to bring it to one of the biggest Pokemon tournaments that we've ever seen. And we got to see if social media is going to be bold enough to share some amazing questions with us. We do have some that we did pull from social media. So I think this question is just for you, Jeremy. What is the placement? Where is the highest placing Arceus V-Star deck going to land? In which variant of Arceus V-Star is it going to be?
Okay, that's going to be rough. Arceus, the more and more non-V Pokemon that come out, the worse and worse it gets. But maybe Arctina in like top 32.
Okay, that's very solid. And for Legacy Energy, it's definitely a big claim to fame for Lugia, but do you think that is what it really needs to have big success in NAIC?
Yeah, well, the Special Energy, Rainbow Energy is always great. I didn't even talk about it limiting your opponent from taking one of the prize cards from the Pokemon you're attacking with. So it definitely could throw a wrench into things in the meta. Lugia's still very consistent. So
okay,
I think it's back.
Yeah, so Lugia is back. You heard it here, folks. So I need to hear your vote on this one. This is the big question that we all need to know. Raging Bolt EX or Dragapult EX, Jeremy? What's your call?
I personally like Dragapult EX more. I like the more slow, methodical, kind of like build your board setup decks instead of the hope I get it, but there'll be a lot of players hoping to get it at NAIC.
That is the sound of a person who has yet to play the Raging Bolt Teal Mask Ogerpon deck. Once you play it, it doesn't hit like anything else in the game, trust me. And for those of you at home, we do have something that's going to hit especially for you, is the distribution. Make sure you tune into the stream. We're going to have the card code that you can put in to get the special illustration rare of Teal Mask Ogerpon EX. So you'll be able to try out these decks for yourself and also show off a little bit. So make sure you tune into the stream to get that special code we're going to be dropping next week.
Absolutely. And we've got still a lot to get through here, but Jeremy, we got time for you to give us some final thoughts before we bring you back later on the show.
NAIC, wonderful tournament. A lot of players are going to be there. A lot of players trying to lock up that Worlds invite. And it's going to be a lot of emotions running through the entire weekend. So honestly, excited to see how the broadcast goes and can't wait to basically finish off the season.
Fantastic. Can't wait for all your perspectives as the tournament's going on. So we'll catch you then, and we'll catch you later on the show, Jeremy. But thanks for coming to share your insights. We've got to head now into a discussion on the VGC tournaments that are coming up. Unfortunately, we are lucky enough to be joined by Mr. Joe Brown to help take us through it. Hi, Joe.
Hey guys, how's it going? Thanks for having me.
Of course. I'm excited to hear your expertise for Pokemon VG. I think it's one of our most hype games, and a lot of people are excited for it.
Yeah, definitely the crown jewel of Pokemon in my biased opinion. I'm not talking Iron Crown, but yeah, NAIC is going to be really awesome at this upcoming weekend. We're going to have this same format that will be moving forward towards the World Championships. So definitely the results of this upcoming weekend are going to impact the metagame following in Hawaii.
With the NAIC tournament having such a big ripple effect on future metagames, do you think players are going to try to play it safe for this one, or are you expecting something really out of left field?
Yeah, I think it's always a tough question to know, like, when do you make the call, right? When do you make the play, or do you hold on to that information for the World Championships when people aren't expecting it? And I think because this year there's such a long break, roughly 8 weeks between NAIC and the World Championships, there is the chance that if you're holding on to information for Worlds, because there's so much time, somebody else might find that as well. Somebody else might naturally come to that same conclusion that you think this certain Pokemon or this certain counter meta team strategy, someone else might also find that there. So I think at NAIC, this is the time to pounce, right? If you've been building up for the last month or so in this regulation, trying to figure out what the best call is, what the best play is, the best team of 6, I would try to go all in here on NAIC, because you might not be able to withhold that information for another 2 months.
I like it. Go all in, pull out all the stops, and we can take a look at the leaderboard now to see the names of the players that are going to be doing just that. Any names jumping out to you specifically, Joe?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the things that the Scarlet and Violet era of Pokemon has really shown us is it's really rewarded veteran trainers that have been playing the game for a very long time. Many of the names on this list have been playing VG for near a decade, over a decade, started in Black and White, maybe X and Y. Like, for example, Riley Factura, #1 in the world, one of the best players in the world. But you see other players that have just been playing for a super long time, like Alex Gomez, Eric Rios, James Beck, Alberto Lara, I think started back in Black and White 2 or something like that. So there's for some reason, the metagame with terrestrializing and the Pokemon we have available in Scarlet and Violet, it's really helped benefit players that have a lot of experience with these prior Pokemon.
The legacy, right, of a lot of these competitors and that sort of bygone knowledge coming right back around into this new format is just beautiful, honestly, for them to get that payoff.
Absolutely.
And I guess,
yeah, I mean, we have two, just quick to add on to that, we have two players that won regionals this season in North America that are former world champions in the seniors division, and one of them was Toller Webb, who won it in 2012, and here he is now in 2024 winning another regional title. So that's a 12-year consistent stretch of great VG play. So the players have really been rewarded for all of their practice.
Yeah, and I guess when it comes to high-level, consistent players, the ones that we want our viewers at home to really pay attention to, we can jump into right now. We've got Riley Factura actually at the top of the leaderboard. Break it down for us, Joe.
Yeah, for sure. Anyone who is just, getting into Pokemon and wants to focus on some players going into NAIC next weekend, Riley Factura, certainly the #1 trainer in North America right now, arguably one of the best players in the world. Just throw some fun stats for you. We didn't have any tournaments in 2021, so we don't count that year. Riley has won a regional in every odd-yeared season that we have had since 2015. So 15, 17, 19, and 23 is 5-time regional champion. And this season started off absolutely on fire. The first regional of this season, winning in Pittsburgh, got top 8 of the 5 of his first 6 regionals he went to, and during that stretch got top 4 in LAIC. So that is an incredible 3-month run, 7-event run that Riley was on to start the beginning of this season. And now you might understand he also got top 8 at a Brazilian regional last month, so he's continuing to play all over the globe. So now you might understand why he has so many championship points.
Yeah, with so much history in the game, there's so many big names, as you touched upon, that have really established themselves over the years. Our next player, I think, one of the biggest names, not just by virtue of achievement, but by virtue of how much he's given back to the community in the form of content creation, lessons, learnings. Tell us about how Wolf's looking for this.
Yeah, Wolf Glick, arguably the greatest Pokemon player of all time. You can have your debate in the comment section or in Twitch chat, but I'm going to say it. The greatest VG trainer of all time, Wolf Glick, and he is not slowing down. The only player this season to win 2 separate regionals. He decided on a whim right before the Orlando regionals to fly out to Orlando to reclaim his title from winning Orlando last year.
Amazing.
Literally booked a last-minute flight and then defended his crown now as back-to-back Orlando regional champion. So winning 2 events in the last format that we just had, as well as getting top 16 at EUIC. So we know that Wolf is peaking at the right time, and definitely he's the player that everybody's going to be watching to see how he does in NAIC.
Yeah, gargantuan name, towering over everyone else, especially on this side of the pond. But we do have some big names as well in EU that are going to try to step up to the plate. Who do we got?
This is actually a pretty good story going into NAIC because we have both of the international champions this season that will be competing. We can start with Marco Silva here. He is one of 2 trainers in the Masters Division that has won 2 separate international championships. So he got his second victory earlier on this season back in LAIC. And he is certainly one of the most consistent players that Europe has ever seen. It's a real family affair for Pokemon because his family also plays and they all perform well in the lower age divisions. So he's very incentivized to continue to grow and perform well. And I think anybody going into NAIC, if Marco should be on your short list of competitors to come out with a potential 3rd international championship.
And even he looks up to Wolf Glick.
This is, I think, just a great mark of the legacy of VG. These longtime players, as you already talked about, Joe Brown, really getting rewarded, and they're inspiring the next generation of players. But alongside Marco in EU, we've got another European player that our audience should be keeping an eye on.
Yeah, that would be the EUIC international champion, Nils Dunlop, who's also been playing for more than half a decade at this point, going back to a lot of success in the Sun and Moon era, multiple regional championships. But Nils kind of took the world by storm with his Porygon 2 Ursaluna Trick Room team at EUIC that not many people were anticipating at the time because there were so many fast Pokemon and all these priority attacks. But Nils really slowed the metagame down and took advantage of people's lack of preparation. Multiple time regional champion, as I said, top 8 of the World Championships back-to-back consecutive years, which is really difficult to do. And both Nils and Marco are peaking at the right time because Stockholm regionals that just happened in Europe, they both made top 8. So they're playing consistently in this format, and they're kind of hot right now.
I definitely want to hear more about that Porygon 2 situation and implications later, but I do want to look at our LATAM players as well as some superstars from the region.
Yeah, so I'm going with some different picks here. I know a lot of people usually throw out Paul Ruiz as the world champion, Gabriel Agati, multi-time IC finalist, but going a little bit off with some other trainers that I actually think have a really great shot of performing well at NAIC this weekend. The first one is going to be Dorian Quinones, who just last weekend won the Lima special event, earning his world championship invite. Okay. Dorian's been playing for a very long time, has 6 special event championships to his ledger. One of the best players in Latin America. 2017 2017 World's top 8 as well for Dorian. So I think he's the person. He has great momentum right now from Latin America leading in to NAIC next week. And the other player is Juan Salerno, who is arguably the greatest player in Argentina right now. Former IC champion in the seniors division at LAIC. He made LAIC top 8 back in 2020, the year James Beck won that international. And ever since he has aged up from seniors to masters, just continually one of the best players in Latin America. Currently peaking as hard as you can right now, because I'm all about momentum, trying to see how players are going to be, playing as they lead into big events. He just won the Buenos Aires special event, got top 8 at the Bogota special, regional, Sao Paulo regional as well last month, and then another special event is an EUIC top 32. So just really right now playing the best Pokemon that Juan can. Being on a streak like that is going to do great, I think, for his confidence and just spirit, right, heading into NAIC, to know, yes, I've been doing so well, my reads on the meta are good, and hopefully he'll continue to play more good Pokemon.
And the fear that you put into your opponent when you're playing in person, sitting across the table, making eye contact with somebody, well, that counts for a lot as well in these offline tournaments.
And when we consider players that are playing very well, traveling all over the place in order to play Pokemon, we always circle back around to the OC region. They have to go a long distance for all of their tournaments, and we do have some big picks here from Joe Brown. Yeah, Oceania, it's tough for that reason. They don't have as many international events, or it's a little more difficult, right, to get to some of the other events, especially here in North America. So when you perform well on the international stage, everybody remembers your name, and one name to remember from OC is Megan Rattle, back-to-back top 8s at the World Championships in two different eras of VGC. So very impressive. There were different games, different metagames and everything. Top 32 at OCIC last season, defending, performing well in her home region. So I think anyone going into NAIC definitely expects that Megan is one of the best Oceania players of all time, at least at this point in the Masters division. Okay, so Oceania giving some love to the international community, certainly. But who's going to be joining Megan to kind of round out our top players here? So this is pretty fun. It's Henry Rich, who's from Australia, a very nice guy, has been on stream a couple of times, has some solid finishes, but Henry's actually been in North America for a large chunk of this season, so you could argue Henry is probably the most prepared Oceania player for the North American metagame, because he has played in so many North American regionals compared to the rest of the players in the few regionals that were in Australia. And Henry, we saw actually in LA with a really cool Lunala team performing well. I think those are probably the two picks that I would look at from Oceania to expect to perform well. But the interesting storyline between these two, so both Megan and Henry each have one regional title to their name. Megan won the 2019 Perth Regional Championship, and she beat Henry in the finals. And then Henry won the 2022 Brisbane Regional Championship, beating Megan in the finals. So I think that's really cool that if they were to, meet up in the finals of an IC or something, that's a cool story.
Got some nerd chills from that one.
Yeah,
that's cool.
I'm getting hyped for that. Like, you throw a good esports storyline out there, we're just going to eat it right up. And another point that I think you really touched on, Joe, that we haven't had a chance to really dig into yet on the show is the pocket metas that develop in these international regions. And so Henry kind of having a leg up in that regard leads us, I think, into the potential meta for NAIC. What's going to be, I think, maybe a bigger driving factor in what players are going to bring to this tournament.
Absolutely. I think it's a great point that we saw. Henry was using Lunala. I know he's been really invested on it. A lot of trainers in the restricted formats, they really kind of latch on to those restricteds and use those Pokemon through multiple events, the same way that someone might be playing Charizard EX through a 3 regional stretch, right? And these restricteds at the top, this is kind of the sinister 6 of the format right now. One of these 6 restricted Pokemon is very likely to win NAIC. I'm not going to give it 100% guarantee, but just to give you some stats at the events that we've had so far, this Calyrex Ice Rider, Shadow Rider, Terapagos, Miraidon, Koraidon, and Zamazenta. They're the only Pokemon that have won a regional or special event of the 9 we've held in this regulation so far. So it's very likely one of them. Los Angeles Regionals Day 2 usage, 79% of players used one of these 6 Pokemon. And get ready for it. In Stockholm, nearly 91% of all Day 2 players used one of these 6 Pokemon as their restricted. So if one of these 6 does not win NAIC, you can find me the spiciest bowl of gumbo, and I'll eat it.
Now, I know that Zamazenta kind of rose up as a counter to the restricted metagame that was a little bit developing. Has any of these other Pokemon that are showing up, Ice Rider and Shadow Rider, for example, rising up in response to other restricted, or are they just good in their own right?
Yeah, I think the general consensus on Calyrex Ice Rider and Shadow Rider, they're kind of 2 sides of the same coin. One Ice Psychic, one Ghost Psychic. Shadow Rider is a big special attacker that continues to boost your special attack the more knockouts you get, and Ice Rider is a big physical attacker. The more KOs you get, you raise your attack stat. And those are the two big baddies of the event that every team is trying to counter team. You want to have Wide Guard, you want to have Pokemon immune to ghost attacks, or Pokemon that resist ice for the Glacial Lance. Like, those are the 2 best ones. That's where Terapagos comes in as probably that other counter Pokemon like you're talking about, Adam, because Terapagos, when it terrestrializes, its attack becomes Stellar type, and there's a bunch of fun interactions, but basically the core is it's neutral into every Pokemon.
Okay.
So you don't have to worry about your attacks being immune or anything like that. That would probably be the Pokemon I think people might be building around to counter the popular other restricteds.
Yeah, it's very hard to turn down the promise of consistent damage in a format that could go so many different ways.
Yeah, and happy to see the Stellar Terra type starting to be really figured out as far as what can be most useful in these situations here.
But we do
have
have
the other thing with Zamazenta, as you were mentioning, it has won 2 of the 4 regionals we've held in this format, and the main reason is the big buff that Zamazenta got going into Scarlet and Violet was gaining access to Body Press. So now when you enter the field, you gain a +1 to your defense stat, and Body Press deals damage based off your defense instead of your attack. So you don't care about Intimidate and Parting Shot and all these other ways to mitigate damage. It's a lot harder to lessen the damage from the Body Press. So when you have consistent damage from Body Press as well as support access like Wide Guard, it can show that Zamazenta can fill multiple roles on the same team.
Yeah, we've talked about now these are the restricted meta types, but there are some unrestricted things that are frequently popped up in the meta. Last episode, you and Necra put up a little poll for the audience, and that was the opportunity for Twitch chat to predict that Incineroar would be highly featured in the winning team at the EUIC.
That one was, I think, a bit too easy for them.
Yeah.
But this one's going to be more difficult.
I think Twitch chat predicted water was wet with that one.
Yeah, but for NAIC champion, take your pick now in the chat. Vote for which restricted Pokemon you think is going to be on the NAIC champions team. Again, Ice Rider, Shadow Rider, Zamazenta, Terapagos, or Miraidon. What do you think is going to be the winner here, Joe?
Oof, I don't want to influence their chat.
Oh, that's fair.
Their decision. I will say, if you want to be fun, of these 6 Pokemon, Calyrex Ice Rider and Miraidon have only won special events, and they've not won the regionals yet. That the other ones have, same as Terapagos. So I think Calyrex Ice Rider, I still believe, is the strongest restricted. It's probably has not won yet because everybody is trying to over prepare since it is the strongest restricted to build around. So if I were betting my Poké dollars on the line here, I would put my money on Calyrex Ice Rider to win NAIC.
Well, Not to influence Twitch chat any further, let me use this opportunity to get in my questions about that winning team. It featured Incineroar, but it also featured Porygon 2. Not Porygon Z, not Porygon, Porygon 2. Please explain this to me.
Yes, so Porygon 2 has a very fun history in competitive Pokemon because essentially the held item Eviolite doubles the defenses of a Pokemon as long as it's not fully evolved. So that's why you're now seeing Porygon Z instead, because Porygon 2 is significantly bulkier. And what Nils did, what other people do, with access to Terra Blast as a normal type, it gives you a solid same type attack bonus attack that you would not usually be having on Porygon's end. So you have consistent offense, incredible defense because of the Eviolite held item, and then access to Trick Room to help your slow Pokemon sweep through the game. So P2 is a really fun Pokemon.
And Team Rocket makes all the best Pokemon.
It looks like certainly that it's a Pokemon that's specifically designed to reverse every single thing about how Pokemon is played. But what Twitch chat has done has also reversed my opinion because they have voted for Terrapagos.
Interesting.
So I think that this was a Pokemon that we knew was just going to be solid, consistent, not a breakout star, but seems to be the people's favorite. Do you agree with this assessment, Joe?
I definitely think it's a fair assessment from the chat. Terrapagos, its abilities are really strong. It's able to, negate the terrains once it terrestrializes. So you're kind of hurting Miraidon and Koraidon with the weather and terrain. They really need those available on their teams to function. Of course, as I mentioned, having the stellar attack, being able to hit the ghost typing on Calyrex Shadow Rider makes it really consistent. And there are a lot of special attackers in this format right now. So one of the sets that people really are enjoying is a Calm Mind boosting Terrapagos to boost your special attack and special defense. And since there's so many special attackers out there, if you can get your Terrapagos set up, it really can almost feel unstoppable. So I don't think it's a bad choice by Twitch chat.
Twitch chat's been picking some winners. I'm sure when you tune into this show next, we'll have to concede that point to them.
They definitely know what they're talking about, and I think it is Joe Brown's turn to pick us some winners. I've got a fun little question for you, a fun little segment for our audience at home. So recently, we had Stephen A. Smith talk about Mewtwo in the basketball world. So I want to ask you, Joe Brown, which basketball player would be the best at VGC?
Yeah, so we're going to flip the script. First of all, he referred to it as Mewtwo, but we'll let it slide today. It's Mewtwo here, and I decided I wanted to give this question the credit it was due. So I broke out a spreadsheet, and I'm thinking, what do you need to be good at Pokemon? You need good analytical decision-making, quick thinking skills, high intelligence. So what I did was I took all 30 NBA starting point guards in the league and put them on a list, because point guards, they're the facilitators of the basketball. They're the decision makers. They're the team leaders. They have to, everything comes down to the point guard on how the team is run. So I put a list together of the college that each player went to, the average GPA, and the acceptance rate of the universities to see not only did you have to have a high intelligence, high GPA, just to get in, but it's a very difficult, very prestigious school. So likely, if you're smart enough, you might be able to pick up on Pokemon a little quicker than some of the other players. So let's dig into to my top 5 list here of NBA players likely to be good at Pokemon. The first one, my statistically likely answer is Darius Garland on the Cleveland Cavaliers. Went to Vanderbilt, very prestigious university, so has to have that high intellect, a good decision making. Multiple choice questions on the SATs. He had to choose correctly in that slot. Very low acceptance rate from Vanderbilt as well. And the other big thing for Darius Garland is his teammate Jared Allen is also an avid gamer, and it's very important when you're trying to get into a new game that you have a friend that can play with. So I think they could carpool together for regionals. They could be playing against the Bulls one night and then carpool down to Peoria for the next event, right? So Darius Garland makes it on my list from all my research. Then I'm rocking with Jalen Brunson, New York Knicks star point guard. my thoughts here, he went to Villanova, which is a very strong school as well, so has to be very good at research and well studied and everything. But my thing is, if Jalen Brunson can turn the New York Knicks organization around, he can certainly click tailwind plus surging strikes. I think that's a little less difficult than making the Knicks a good team. So I think Villanova boy Jalen Brunson, number 4. Then we're going Devin Booker from the Phoenix Suns, star from Kentucky. Fun fact: almost a quarter of the NBA point guards are from Kentucky or UCLA. So if you want to make it in the NBA as a point guard, go to one of those 2 schools. Devin Booker from Kentucky, an avid gamer, has played in many semi-professional tournaments online and has actually carried streamers, has won money, has appeared in video games, has appeared in video game commercials as well, and he's an absolute scorer. He's a star. He's a star player. We want to see stars like that heading their way over to Pokemon. So Devin Booker, number 3. Number 2, this is kind of out of left field, but I'm going Luka Doncic strictly because he's European and he has the entire European VG player base on his side. He can hit up Jamie Boyd for crazy Pokemon teams that the rest of his regional opponents are not going to be prepared for. The rest of the NBA, they're not going to know how to play against a Superior or a Rev of Room. He can hit up David Kutesh and see, any of these crazy team builders in Europe. They'd all be on Luka's side, where the North American NBA players, they got to split between all the great coaches we have here in NA. Luka has all of EU to his benefit. He's also top 500 in the world in his role in the competitive online game that he plays. That he got that while playing in the NBA playoffs right now. So he's trying to win an NBA championship and he's still grinding games. So
amazing.
I think Luka makes a lot of sense.
A gamer
and the number
through
one
and through.
answer is my boy Karl Anthony Towns. And this is a big deal. Carl Cat, as you know, is one of the only esports signed athletes out there. So he's signed by an esports organization for his skills in many of the shooters and other games that he plays. Wow. But the big deal is Cat is from Jersey, and for anyone who doesn't know, in VGC, New Jersey is title town, USA. 3 world championships in the Master Division. So many regionals you cannot possibly count. Internationals as well. Jersey is where it's at for VGC. So since Carl already has the leg up, since he could just go to all of the locals in New York, in Brooklyn, and in North Jersey and Central Jersey, he's got the leg up there. So Karl Anthony Towns, my NBA player most poised to be great at Pokemon.
Oh, easy vote for me too, Joe. You even said Central Jersey. This is my love language.
There we go.
What a great segment. I think that this is incredibly well researched, and this will be the catalyst that so many esports and basketball scholars will go back to for when these point guards make their splash in VGC here soon. I have no doubt about it at this point.
I do have one question for you though, Joe. Are they going to be playing, is Mewtwo also playing VGC? Is that...
Oh, that's going to open a whole other can of worms, is which Pokemon would be good at, at playing Pokemon or like controlling the other Pokemon as a lead. It'd probably be a psychic type like Mewtwo, right? So that's, I gotta, Rachel, I gotta break out a new spreadsheet. I'll get back
you know what? I don't mean to fill your time like that. You put a lot of effort and research into that. And
yeah,
Joe, I gotta
chat,
say, amazing.
I can see them typing about which Pokemon would be the best leader and the best tactician. But we do have one more question for you as well, Joe Brown, from social media. So there's going to be a heavy metagame rotation like we saw in LA. So do you think that players are going to be playing their most practiced teams, or are they going to be hard countering the metagame? You already said that they should pull out all the stops, but what side is that actually going to fall on?
Yeah, I think it's 2 different questions on what they should or what they will do, right? So I think in this situation, what they will do, I think people really latch on to comfort. And if you have been playing, for example, you've been playing Miraidon as your restricted of choice for all of Regulation G so far, it might be very scary after LA, and then we have a European event this weekend. It might be scary to just hop off that team building train and go into a Calyrex Shadow Rider team, right? So I do understand a lot of people's motivations to build the best version of a team that they have been iterating on for over the last month plus. So if you're asking me, I think it would make a lot of sense, and it would be likely that people are just going to iterate on the team they've been working on, and then you have 2 months to look at the NAIC results and see online tournaments and have those decisions influence your Worlds team.
Very well said.
Well, and if you're looking to maybe build out your own team after watching all these great players play, you definitely want to tune in to the NAIC VGC competition. Keep your eye in chat because we got some drops for you. This one's going to be the Porygon Z that Nils made famous at EUIC.
That classic Porygon 2 with the Terra Blast.
Porygon 2, not Z.
And the Trick Room.
Things. You've got to have
Porygon
that EVO-Lite work, so it's got to be the 2.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah, so ever since EVO-Lite was introduced as a held item, Porygon has just been a very fun, I guess fun is depending on which side of the field you're on. It's fun to play with Porygon 2 and set up Trick Room and just recover every turn. But on the other side, it's really difficult to deal with. So that Porygon might be pretty useful right now as a normal type with this Cower Shadow Rider just won a regional, right?
yeah.
Astro Barrage is a ghost attack, so normal might be pretty nice right now.
And so if it does pop off in NAIC, players will be able to get their own mystery code for that Pokemon, so that's very exciting.
Absolutely. And it's been very exciting talking to you, Joe. So much great information, a great analysis on our basketball players. But anything that you feel we haven't addressed, anything you want to say to the people, Joe?
No, I think we've covered a lot. I think anybody watching the stream next weekend for NAIC, it's going to be a great time. I think that overall, it's great to be going to New Orleans for the first time. I'm just super excited to see what happens.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to break down such thorough segments. And there's a lot to look forward to for NAIC for Pokemon VG. So we're going to let you go for now, and we can move on to our next segment.
It's time for Unite, and I am very excited for this one. I get to have a little reunion with Zoinks. Way back in the day, did a little Unite hosting. Zoinks has been carrying along with the other incredible talent casters this esport that has just exploded. Joshua, maybe you can give us a little more insight into the growth of Unite and what this last season has looked like from your perspective.
Sure. Well, at the very least, we're at NAIC 2 years in a row. So I would say that is some fantastic growth. It is going to be an amazing event. So good to see you again, Rachel and Adam, by the way. I am pumped to be here. Pokemon Unite is in a really cool spot. We got metagame shifts going on. The regions are finishing up all over the world. And NAIC, like many other games, is our final tournament before the World Championships. And we're hosting 2 tournaments at one event, so it's gonna be awesome.
All right, so you just definitely dropped a big bombshell on me. 2 tournaments run at the same event. Let's just jump right in, and you got to break it down for us, Zoinks.
Sure. So we're going to be running the regional finals, which kind of started a few weeks back. They played out their open qualifiers and the group stage online, trying to qualify for top 8 teams. Those top 8 teams have qualified for NAIC and are going to be playing out that final bracket in day 1 of the North America International Championships. Day 2, and it's also happening on day 1, is the final stretch, which is an open bracket where teams who maybe didn't qualify through those open qualifications, or potentially teams from around the world, can attend this event and try to qualify, because the first place reward for the final stretch is a World Championship spot. Same with the regional finals. So 2 world spots are going to be given away due to tournament performance during this weekend.
2 world spots up for grabs. And Pokemon Unite, for those of you who aren't familiar, the most hype crowds, the scrappiest competitors, certainly. And so they're going to be pulling out all the stops to get one of those spots for themselves. So let me just ask this. Are there any teams that are going to be in both tournaments?
Potentially. So the way the format works is 5 teams from the top 8 will not be qualifying for the World Championships via that bracket, since 1 team will win the award and 2 teams will qualify via championship points. The remaining 5 teams will actually be added into the final stretch midway through the tournament and joining the fray in day number 2. So that'll all be going down in day number 2, but we kind of got to start with day number 1, where the NA regional finals are happening. The top 8 You can see right now the bracket in front of you. We have a wonderful day of games ahead of us. They have 4 teams starting in winner's side, 4 teams starting in the loser's bracket side of things, because the group performance had first place in groups going to winners, second place in groups starting the tournament in the loser's bracket.
Okay, so after the group stage resolved, these teams got to get that top slot for the bracket, which is always really important. Don't have to worry about having to fight for a bracket reset and just reaping those benefits. But are there any specific teams here on this bracket that you really want to focus in on, Zoinks?
There's one I'm really hoping to focus in on, because I am very confused when I'm looking at this bracket, Zoinks.
Okay, yeah, that is fair. I would say that if you ask anybody who's been watching the competitive season all year long, it's sort of a big 3 in terms of Nemesis, Luminosity Gaming, and Orange Juicers. The first one we're going to talk about is Nemesis. Don't worry, Seltzer, I promise we'll get to that team you want to talk about. But Nemesis, currently one of the strongest teams in North America. They've been playing together as this roster of 5 ever since EUIC, when they added their top path player Metallic to the roster. An absolute young, phenomenal player. He actually hit the eligible age to compete like 2 weeks before EUIC. So he has joined this roster and has been absolute lights out. Their Gyarados play, their Blaziken play has just been incredible. Contender for Rookie of the Year. So this roster, while being in winner's bracket, are poised to make a very, very deep run.
A young player with something to prove. I think that just gives you like that extra bonus points when you're playing a team game like this. But what other teams are they going to have to match up against?
Well, the other team that's in the winner's bracket is going to be Orange Juicers. This is a community favorite. Definitely a lot of... Well, I brought up a lot of discussion if you'd have pulp in your orange juice or not. It was a whole thing. But other than that, they also bring competitive Unite to the peak that it can be shown at when it's on the level playing field. They are so incredible. This team kind of formed after a bunch of roster shifts happened right before the regional finals. And I gotta say, they came out very, very strong. This team is the April Finals champion. That was our most recent tournament. So the reigning champs in NA, and just so many skilled players across the board. Their player who is in the defender or the tank role is Zugrug, formerly from the TTV team, who were unbelievably strong at last year's NAIC and honestly years past. He is an incredible player, one of the best defender players worldwide, and you can really see how they lead the team in certain ways. And they've been a great addition to this Orange Juicer squad, and again, this team is poised to make a deep run. I think a lot of people are going to be very excited if they get to watch Orange Juicer's gameplay.
Okay.
Pretty incredible, too, that some of these players that have had the longest history in this game team up with some of the newest players in the game, and there's still that incredible synergy that comes from this old-new mix. I love how much the Unite scene has been expanding, but I love how much history really stays consistent. Except for
you pair the veterans with the rookies. yeah, I'm sorry to cut you off, but you are so right, Seltzer. The final team we're going to be talking about is 2-time back-to-back world champions, technically the current world championship title holders of Luminosity. Now, granted, there are quite a few changes. Overlord is currently the only player on this roster who was on that roster of 5 last year at the world championships, but they've added some incredible talent alongside them right now. They have JL and Joey, who are kind of a duo that have been playing together for quite some time this year, who look unbelievable, a credible defender and support duo. And then they have a TTV duo as well on this team of the attacker player Otter and the central area player Lutano, who I think was the clear it away MVP of last year's NAIC. So we will definitely see if they can put that performance on again. The big talking point, though, here is Luminosity, with all of their street cred, I guess, and all of their accolades, are starting in the losers bracket after going 2-1 in groups, losing to a team named G, who actually also have a former Luminosity gaming player on that roster.
Yeah,
so a bit of a mix-up between
let's take a look at that bracket once more, and you can break it down for us, Zoinks. How did Luminosity, the reigning world champions, end up in the losers bracket?
Yeah, they got second place in that group, and it was to G. G is a team, more people might be familiar with this GT, but G just a bit of a new look of that squad. But they have on that team Slash, who is now a two-time world champion, has been added to that team after, going separate ways with LG, and is now on that squad. And they had the chance to prove that they got the talent to take down their former teammates and their former, club, but now they're going to have to see if they could do it again. They are starting in the winner's bracket. They're going to be going up against Orange Juicers first. It's going to be a very, very good match. But the way the bracket plays out, we might, if Luminosity makes a deep run, we will most likely get a G Luminosity rematch as well, which is just so exciting. And in person with a crowd, I can't wait.
Oh, that's going to be an absolute treat. And Luminosity, like I said, they went to the top and then poof, like a Elder Glass, spread out and put their little seeds in all these other teams, which have in turn been enhanced by the play. Now, when we're talking about team synergy, we can also talk about the new Unite license coming to the game. That's going to be a feature here. We got Phalanx now.
Oh, that's synergy incarnate. Phalanx, very cute little guy. But break it down for us, Zoinks. What is Phalanx bringing to the game itself? What's it going to bring to a team?
Sure. So we've had this Pokemon in ranked for a little while now. It is an all-rounder, very melee, brawly focused. It's a fantastic Pokemon that honestly you could kind of give that do-it-all accreditation to. It has amazing team fighting ability. Its last hit secure on wild Pokemon is extremely strong. The big thing with Phalanx is that in draft mode, a lot of people have question marks on this Pokemon. There's a lot of natural counters due to the essence that Phalanx is, having all the little troopers. It allows for a lot of other targets to be hit. So Venusaur's Giga Drain will heal from every single target it hits. Lucario's Extreme Speed has the ability to reset after every single trooper. So Phalanx, if you see it emerge in draft, will most likely be near the end of the draft when you've already seen what your enemy team is drafting, so you can avoid some of those nasty counters.
Very fascinating to hear that it enables these specific interactions that teams can dig into and try to draft around to take advantage of.
Yeah, and it's interesting, too, to hear that it's a potential choice for a lot of bans, because up until now, it seems like the banned Pokemon have kind of been set, the banned licenses. So as we take a look at the meta, do you think this is going to be a bit of a shakeup from what you're expecting?
I think so. I think Phalanx could have made it onto this graphic. At least I'm hoping so. I don't know. It really is going to be a test to see if it makes it. But this is the top 6 I predict. This might not be the top 6 most used, but there are definitely Pokemon on this list that I think are defining the metagame right now. Zoroark, while it might not see as much play in online tournaments and the in-person environment, there's just something about players looking at their team, at their opponents across the stage and picking one of the most skill-intensive Pokemon in the game to prove that they are the strongest, and Zoroark is one of the best at that. A big surprise here, though, is in that bottom right, Tyranitar got some recent buffs in a balance patch and is unbelievably strong on the ranked ladder. It's doing very, very well. In some community tournaments, it's also seen some success. So it's on this list, but with an asterisk. We're not sure how it's going to perform at the top level of tournament play quite yet, but it could be very strong.
Okay, a bit of a wild card, something that the people think is strong, but still needs to be proven by our top level players. Now, the last time we spoke to you, Zoinks, the defenders were the big ticket, the big Pokemon that were being picked and banned and really driving the discussion about teams. Is that going to be a big factor into how these squads want to start drafting their Pokemon?
It could be very similar. I think where we tend to see defenders or tanks land is often in those ban slots initially. They help kind of define how your team composition is going to be built. They often are enablers of different play styles. So we will see some bans there early. However, I think we're going to see a big shift for a lot of players trying to draft around carries, specifically in the top path in this game. We've seen quite a few bans there recently. Even seeing Pokemon like Gyarados and Blaziken banned away, where those Pokemon have really not seen seen that top level of at least ban focus in quite some time. Both of them have had a lot of success competitively, but now I think we are truly entering into this top path focused era.
Yep, and Twitch chat was right there with you. They had voted last time that Buzzwole was certainly going to be the most banned Pokemon, and it was 81. I'm seeing here out of 102 games. Actually ridiculous ban rate.
Yeah.
And so we've got another poll. We've got to consult the wisdom once more. What is going to be the most banned Pokemon? Make sure you participate in that poll because I really want to know. Leafeon, Hoopa, Tyranitar, Zoroark, or Umbreon?
Yeah, and we've talked a little bit about, Phalanx, what that could potentially bring to the table. But as a team game, as a game with so many community tournaments, such a wide berth of competition going on, a lot of it is often tied to the success of a standout player, someone making a particular license very feared, and a lot of people kind of hopping on how they play. So have you seen kind of any favorites from top players that are a little scarier than perhaps the average person would make them look?
Oh, we definitely have some of that. If we're thinking about Nemesis, a few Pokemon come to mind. Rex, the support player's Blissey support is world class. Whenever they are on that, it seems like their top path carry Pokemon, their teammates are just capable of dominating any team in front of them because of that incredible support play. On that same team, though, Trainer LGC is known worldwide for their Leafeon play. In fact, we had Japanese interviews coming out from teams from that region after they got to play on the international stage saying, we need to make a Leafeon composition because of how good Trainer played on that Pokemon. So a couple of vouchers for Nemesis. Lutano on Team Luminosity. His Venusaur is stuff of legend. And I have to admit, it's a bit of a selfish request, but if we get to the Zoroark from Overlord at an in-person event at NAIC, I'd be over the moon. So definitely some great options. But there's teams that also have crazy picks to their name. A team that is kind of an unknown in the top 8 on the winner side, Nihao, is known for playing Cinderace in Path, not even the central area. So really, who knows what we're going to see in person? And yeah, the Unite people in chat are molding over that, I guarantee it. But yeah, it is a wild out there pick, but Nihao has obviously seen a ton of success already, even starting in the group stage. And I know a lot of people are going to be excited to watch that roster in the top 8.
Nothing feels better as a player to have your pick specifically known on the international level. I am the player that put this Pokemon on the map, and I get the respect from the international community, and that's got to feel great. But another opinion that I have to respect is Twitch chat. We do have the results of that poll. They did vote, and it looks like Tyranitar is their pick for most banned. Ooh. Maybe early on in the bracket, it's going to have that breakout performance that everybody's worried about, and then start to pick up the bans thereafter. What do you think?
I really want Twitch chat to go 2 for 2. I do. I mean, they're kind of disrespecting Leafeon right now. It feels a little underhanded. I mean, T-Tar's the cool new thing, but don't forget, Leafeon's been unbelievable all season long. So I'm cautious, but Twitch Chats currently has 100% rate in this Unite segment, so I really can't argue.
I have to wonder, is Twitch Chat also perhaps just got their glasses on does it say Tyrant? What is on the whiteboard behind you, Zoinks?
Oh, I put the whiteboard away. I was writing up the NAIC script. I didn't want anybody...
Well, I'm afraid that we do see a little something there in the background.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah. Hold on, I just gotta write.
Okay, there's a lot of stuff. This is, sensitive information. I'm really glad to be on this show. This was so much fun, everybody. Thanks for having Unite as a part of it. This will obviously be the last time, so thank you so much.
But wait, before you go, I need one more thing from you, Zoinks.
Oh, sure.
A hot take.
Ooh, a hot take. Okay. A great friend of mine and a fellow co-caster is going to love this one. A lot of great Pokemon have been added to the Unite roster so far. We're at 75 and counting. I do think the next one should be Pelipper. I think it is an absolutely incredible Pokemon, and the fact that it's not in the Unite roster yet honestly brings a tear to my eye. That is my hot take. Pelipper should be in Unite.
Ooh. Flamin' hot take. Love to hear it, Zoinks. Always love catching up with you. Unfortunately, we'll get to do that a little bit later in the show as well. But Zoinks wasn't the only talent with a hot take. Let's check in with everybody else and see what the spice is.
Get ready to do the wave and take that festival lead, as I think Diplin and Outplin are going to go 9-0 day 1 of the North American International Championships.
Okay, Lugia V-Star may have flopped at EUIC, but with the new cards from Twilight Masquerade, I have a feeling someone at NAIC is going to be summoning Star their way to a World Championship invite.
My hot take for NAIC is not 1,
but 2 Monkey Dory will make top 8.
Here we go. I guarantee you that the deck that wins NAIC will have at least one basic Pokemon in it.
My hot take, I know we have a lot of Europeans coming across the Atlantic trying to compete here in North America, but I think that North America is going to hold strong and protect home turf.
I predict that a North American is going to win it all, and also I'm going to predict a comeback for Shadow Swampert.
Someone from Europe is going to take NAIC. You heard it here.
Why have one restricted when you could have 2? Getting a sense of deja vu? Because mark my words, it's gonna be Ditto winning NAIC.
Regulation G has been wild so far. I've got a wild hot take that they'll be celebrating in the streets of New Orleans when Kyogre wins NAIC.
Calyrex Shadow Rider is going to win NAIC. I think the wheel has turned around. Calyrex Shadow Rider is back, ready to be on top. 2 in the top 8 and 1 winning the tournament, for sure.
Getting a sense of deja vu? Because mark my words, it's gonna be Ditto winning NAIC. Why have one restricted when you could have 2? Getting a sense of deja vu? Because mark my words, it's gonna be Ditto winning NAIC. Why have one restricted when you could have 2?
Love the hot takes. If I had to share a hot take, it would be if you are in New Orleans, maybe be more excited about a Groudon than a Kyogre. Play Ruby Sapphire if you don't know what I'm talking about.
That's certainly a valid point, and I think that my hottest take for NAIC is that everybody's sleeping on Dialga V-Star. The deck is still going to hang on, and the true believers will be rewarded.
I know which clan you picked in Legends Arceus.
I see the eye rolling, but the true Dialga players in the chat know that when that deck falls off the radar is when it is at its strongest. So certainly welcome back everybody for this kind of final segment. We kind of get to recap and answer some final questions we have from our audience. And we're just going to get quick answers from everybody and have a good time. And we'll jump right into it. So amongst all of the games, what is going to be the highest placing? Lost Box for TCG, Clefairy for VG, Sea Titan for Go, or Tyranitar for Unite? Caleb, which one of those picks do you think is going to be the best?
Look, I'm no expert in the other games, but I gotta say that the lowest placing will be Sea Titan and Go, right? That thing's not gonna have play. It did get Powder Snow as a buff, but unless you're talking Citadel, Sea Titan's not gonna make it for Go.
And for you, Jeremy, do you think that Lost Box really has what it takes? Is it better than Clefairy and VG?
Yeah, so I'm not sure about VG or Go. Tyranitar is going to be the most banned Pokemon, right? So, it's not going to be winning, right? It's going to be banned. People aren't going to play it, right? Lost Zone is one of the best decks we have. It can do pretty much anything you want, and there's going to be at least one in top 8 for sure.
Very valid. And Joe, the Clefairy for VG, is that a joke or is it another Eviolite monstrosity?
No, that is, yes, if you're wondering where Clefable is, it's the same answer as Porygon Z. It's all about Eviolite, that held item. Clefairy has a ability Friend Guard, where your other teammates take 20% less damage while Clefairy's on the field, and it becomes super bulky because of Eviolite. So unlike Titan or maybe Lost Box, Clefairy is actually very viable and just won the Los Angeles Regional Championship last weekend. So I'm going to stick with my game. I'm going to say Clefairy, I don't want to guarantee the win. I'll say at least makes finals.
Okay, playing it safe. I respect it. But Zoinks, Tyranitar, if it gets banned over and over again, is it even still a valid pick, or do you think it's going to have a very high placement once both of these tournaments for Unite resolve?
a real tree falls in a forest kind of situation. I think, yes. I think if Tyranitar has a upwards of 80% ban rate, I think it did win the event. I think that is philosophically correct. But honestly, it's going to make its way through the ban phases at some point, and some team's going to pick it up. If I get to watch my big, angry, stomping rock boy, I'm going to be pumped. So, yeah.
Well, now I want that for you.
We all want it. Collectively, we all want it.
Well, we've asked you to look left and right across the different games in the last question. Same for this question. Now, y'all remember in 2022 Worlds where Urshifu was dominant across all the games. Do you feel like there's a Pokemon right now that is well represented across all the competitive titles, and why is it Sableye?
We kind of came to a consensus as we were reading this question. We were having our little, pre-show meeting. Sableye, we don't agree anymore. That was the answer to the last preview show. But I think
we got a lot of feedback. We got a lot of feedback. We're not going with Sableye anymore. I hear you.
The four of us, the NAIC consensus crew here, we're going to cheat a little bit and say the Clefable line. So not specifically one of the three. I think maybe we let everybody explain it, or just make it quicker. Cleffa is a solid TCG card right now that's very supportive, so that's starting out the line. Clefairy is very strong in VGC as a support Pokemon. Clefable, I know maybe not in Great League, you might not see it at a Go regional for the event, but Clefable's pretty solid in Ultra League and just a generally bulky fairy type. And then in Unite, sure, there's other better supports out there, but you can't go wrong. Clefable's solid as a support option. That's the best we can come up with, guys. Sorry.
I'll take it. Yeah. I'll definitely allow it. The Cleffa and its free retreat and grasping draw. I'll definitely throw my vote in there with Jeremy for TCG. Very solid card, and could be one of the key cards to keep Dragapult afloat.
I'm just more perturbed by your collusion. I don't think you should get the questions ahead of time next time. This consensus disturbs me.
Well, we got to put him on the spot a little bit, and we're going to do that right now. Caleb, Gumbo, Jambalaya, or Po' Boys?
Oh, I'm Po' Boy all the way, but I'm going to try it all in New Orleans. But I'm a big Po' Boy fan myself.
That's going to be the first stop, certainly. And what about you, Jeremy?
Definitely.
I'm going to go with the fourth option, which is beignets.
Oh, man.
Nice.
Or all of the above. Same kind of thing.
Also good choice.
Now, Joe Brown already said he was going to eat some spicy gumbo for us, but are you just going to try some just to get a taste for it ahead of time?
Well, that's only if one of those 6 restrictions don't win, but no. Fun fact, I actually do make a mean jambalaya at home. I'm a big fan of jambalaya. Hopefully anyone ever visits, you can have some, but I love jambalaya a lot, way more than gumbo.
Okay.
I'm booking a flight now.
Yeah, are we, is that what's after the show? We're going to go eat?
Yeah, Joe Brown's famous jambalaya, but what is Zoinks hungry for?
I can't believe I'm the only gumbo enjoyer out of the four of us. That's wild. Yeah, I'm going for gumbo, please.
Yeah, I mean, New Orleans is going to be a great place to pick it up. I wonder if you've got a spot picked out or a specific type of spicy gumbo. Is it spicier the better? Is there different kinds? What's going on?
I'll follow my nose, kind of like a Looney Tunes chasing a pie. I will float through the air to find the best gumbo.
Just float through the air and find the gumbo. And
exactly.
Honestly, New Orleans is a beautiful city. It has that sort of magical energy where once you're there, especially like getting those beignets, you are indeed going to be floating through the air. And that's what a lot of our competitors are going to be trying to do, certainly, showing up at NAIC and trying to just float their way to the finals. So I'm really excited, seriously. And that's a great question. But I think a final one that our audience at home certainly is very invested in is, what are your underdog picks? Not quite hot takes, but just some rogue picks or some untested ideas that could throw a big monkey wrench into this tournament. What's Go got going on, Caleb?
Yeah, so there's a few Pokemon that did get some new moves in this upcoming Shared Skies update, and one of them is actually Swanna, water flying type. Typically speaking, most people will run Mantine or Pelipper in these tournaments, but Swanna getting Fly could be pretty interesting. The Shadow Swanna does beat Annihilate, and it could definitely beat Whiscash as well, very prominent. I don't know if anyone's going to run it, but getting Fly is a good addition to that Swanna.
Okay, hey, you're putting it out there. Might be some last-minute inspiration for somebody who's on the fence. But Jeremy, what's the underdog pick for TCG?
I don't know. I've been loving Blissey EX a lot. It just has built-in draw power with its attack, and you can move energy around with its ability, and it's colorless, so you can pair it with a lot of different things. Just we'll have to see if someone can pair it with the right thing for the meta. Still has some kind of awkward matchups out there.
Okay. I know that its original claim to fame was having a decent matchup on paper into Dragon Ball EX, which is doing quite well. So we'll see if that translates. We have some Blissey believers heading into NAIC.
Yeah, any wild cards, Joe Brown, that you're expecting for the video game?
Well, I can make the easy joke and say the underdog Pokemon to choose is Zacian, because it's picking up in its usage right now. A lot of people are thinking that it's going to perform better in NAIC, but instead of a Pokemon, I'll say a region. I think a lot of people are expecting NA to hold serve here at NAIC, and then you have the storyline of EU, if they win this third event, would get the clean sweep and win all 3 of the events. So instead, I'm going to put I'm going to back the Latin American region. I love their passion. I love their player base. And I'm going to say Latin America wins NAIC.
Ooh, now that is an underdog pick if I've ever heard one, certainly.
I'm excited. Zoinks, what do you got for us?
Gardevoir EX, probably. Monkey Dory getting added into the card pools. Really good for that deck. I don't know. Psychic types are kind of strong. But honestly, if we're talking Unite, which I suppose I'm hired to do, honestly, maybe Gardevoir, actually. There's a lot to do with Tyranitar hitting the meta. A lot of people are focusing more on the later stages of the game. We were in an early game dominated meta for so long. We're still kind of there, but players are starting to experiment with more late games. So we could see something like Gardevoir really rise again. North America is well known for it.
I love so much this opportunity to talk with you all before the tournament. There's a lot to think about, a lot to prepare for, and I can really figure out my schedule of what I want to watch. But gentlemen, one more time from the top, would you want to say any final words, everyone that's been watching, everyone that's looking forward to seeing your coverage?
I forgot to mention during the Unite segment, we have Twitch drops now. Make sure to tune in.
That's important.
There's going to be Twitch drops on the Unite streams on day 1 and day 2. Emblem package for a watch reward on day 1. And here a license selection box on day 2, right near the end of the day. So keep an eye on socials to learn the exact details of that and how you can get involved in the rewards.
Wonderful. Final thoughts from you, Caleb?
Yeah, definitely. Good luck to everyone competing. It's going to be a whole new meta, so very excited to see the spice, and everyone bring your Satite encounters.
Okay. Throwing some spice out there. I like it. And Jeremy, final thoughts for NAIC?
Yeah, well, it's going to be a giant tournament, new set, going to shake up the metagame a lot. I don't know. Consistency always is king in these types of tournaments, and I feel like you're going to be keeping an eye on a lot of those top 16 global players in this whole event.
Nice. And the final thought, Mr. Joe Brown.
All right. I think, honestly, this is one of the most anticipated events, not just because it's at the end of the season, but one of the most anticipated ICs we might have ever had. New location, 10 of the 11 North American regional champions will be in attendance, 3 EU regional champions, as well as the 2 IC winners. So this is about as close as we can get to the world champion caliber level event outside of the World Championships later this summer. So New Orleans is going to be amazing.
Yeah, in case you have not been convinced by our expert panelists and the hype of this show, just remember that the caliber of participants in this tournament in NAIC are going to be just a half step, not even, under what you're going to be seeing at the World Championship. So it's going to be a great preview of that next level of play that all of our competitors are striving to achieve. And I want to thank our panelists once more for calling in and breaking down their individual games and really setting the stage for our audience at home. So thank you so much for your time. We're going to let you finally go and finish preparations and getting hype even more for NAIC.
I gotta say, Adam, this really, you always look forward to a tournament. It's always interesting to see what individual players bring out, but to have kind of a meta snapshot in your head, to go in with a preparation of what is exciting, I feel very qualified to sit in that Unite crowd and scream my head off.
I mean, that's all they check for. You're sitting down for Ignite, can you scream? Then that's all that they need. It's the hypest crowd, and it's always a joy to see how much they support their community. And, you know, they consistently get awards for best dressed casters. We're all trying to catch up, but that's fine by me. They have their time in the sun, and as long as they keep growing and maintaining that hype, I know that it's going to all pay off for them. And that's exactly where TCG started. That's where VG started. That's where Go started. And it's all thanks to our Pokemon fans for shining a big spotlight on the individual games that they love.
And making each of these events bigger and bigger. There's so many attendees that are just excited to watch. There's so many more people that are excited to get their first taste of competition. And so once again, always Pokemon Competitive welcomes anyone interested in play. It's a great time and a wonderful community.
Yeah, that's a really great point. And if you want to tune in again to the broadcast next week, jot down this time. You don't want to miss it. That's going to be June 7th next week on Twitch. And we got time zones here. This is really important because international competitions, you got to make sure you have the right time zone. I'm just going to shout out right now because I'm Pacific time, 6 a.m. You got to tune in early for these.
Yeah, we got to tune in early, but you know what? It's going to be worth it. It's going to hype you up for the full day, and you got to watch out for all those Twitch drops across the games. Of course, you might even want to go in person if you're a certain level of excited, and there's a good reason to do that. They got the Pokemon Center on site. You can do a little shopping as well, and I'm all about that.
Yeah, the exclusive items that they have at the Pokemon Center is always a huge draw. We have exclusive merchandise for NAIC and an exclusive Eevee Funko Pop. This is going to be available at the NAIC Pokemon Center, and there are still slots available. So make sure you check out that link and sign up if you haven't already. We're trying to get as many Pokemon fans in the door at the last minute that we can. And if you are trying to get your last minute preparations to go to New Orleans for NAIC, Pokemon does have some hotel blocks still available. You can maybe snag a room and be nice and comfy for NAIC to get in here, enjoy the hype in person, add your voice to that loud, screaming Unite crowd, pick up some sweet merch at the Pokemon Center, and check out that link for the Hyatt Place Pokemon block. I'm so hopeful that somebody can get that last minute come up and pick up a room.
Yeah, not just that, but it's like a Pokemon sleepover. That sounds like such a fun event. Whether you're at the event, whether you're at the hotel, be good to each other, have a wonderful time, and wow, I am so excited for all of our competitors. I cannot wait to see how this final major event of this season pans out and sends us off into Worlds. Skarszik, thank you so much for the opportunity to join you on this show, to talk to all of these geniuses, and to get this hype.
Oh, I mean, it was a pleasure having you on, Rachel. This was been a great show, and I'm so happy that our audience at home has joined us once again to bring hype to NAIC. So that's going to be it from us. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you next week on the NAIC broadcast. So tune in then.